Hello, my name is Sarah Nation, and this is my project-based learning presentation for EDUC 407, in which I discuss the Reinventing Project-Based Learning, a Field Guide to Real-World Projects in the Digital Age by Susie Voss and Jane Krause. In this presentation, I focus on chapters 3, 4, and 5. In 3, it's getting the big idea. In 4, we discuss strategies. And in 5, we talk about assessment. So, chapter 3, Imagining the Possibilities. This is where you have to look at the big idea and understand core concepts of the subject being taught in order to begin your first steps of planning. Big ideas to consider are Bloom's taxonomy. And these are concepts that you want to integrate into your planning because it encourages synthesis and metacognition. Words like analyze, evaluate, and create should be applied to goals from Bloom's taxonomy. In the 21st century concept of literacy, this should be addressing the ability to be an independent and aware and a productive citizen. It allows the learner the ability to be literate in a digital age in which they're able to find information, assess whether it's good or bad, and then deal with raw data and put it into their own understanding. For learning dispositions or habits of mind, these are traits, attitudes, habits, feelings that the learner has towards learning. Okay, it indirectly affects their confidence, their curiosity, and their resourcefulness. Okay, they are encouraged to learn through experience and encouragement. And there are two types of learners. There's the fixed approach, where students believe they cannot learn or that they are born with all they are ever going to know. And then there's the growth approach, which believe if they put in enough effort, they have the ability to learn something new. And this growth approach should be encouraged by teachers, especially when giving feedback, by saying things like, wow, you really worked hard, as opposed to saying, wow, you're really smart. Okay, when students have this growth approach, they have a tendency to have more grit and self-control. And this also goes back into habits of mind, their attitudes towards learning. Okay, so there are 6 essential functions of project-based learning. There's the research, finding the raw data, and then being able to interpret it. There's making their ideas available or visible through presentations. There's collaboration, working with others to come to a goal. Project management, bringing a cohesiveness to the project. Reflection and iteration deals with being able to reflect and then revise and then add more if necessary. And finally, support study education using educational resources. Okay, those are the things that should be considered when planning. Next is strategies for discovery. How to select and design a project. Okay. In this one, the authors suggest that the teacher be very selective and observe the quality of student experience. There are several pitfalls to avoid. For instance, long activity, short outcome. If the student can learn something through a brief lecture, as opposed to lots of activity, and then a short understanding, the project is probably a waste of time. It is more work than any sort of benefit the student can derive from it. Also, teachers should watch out for trivial thematic units. They discuss the idea of teaching ocean and all the animals and the tides and whatnot were involved in it. They suggested maybe perhaps a year-long theme in which multiple disciplines can be involved. For instance, discussing the nature of being a fisherman or the quality of fish in the sea as opposed to how many are consumed. Okay, next, overly scripted. It should not be overly scripted with lots of steps. Students should have the ability to be critical and make critical decisions about their learning paths. It shouldn't be overly complex. Next, there's not enough formative assessment. This is problematic because if you don't know how the students are doing, you cannot give them many workshops or change the progress of the project to fit the understanding. Finally, assessment is not authentic. All assessment should be in a real world. It should be a real world measure of quality. Okay. Often, the ideas for projects come from everywhere. One successful project often leads to another. And they have many things in common, including loosely designed. Okay. That way you can address different learning paths. Students should be able to construct meaning, center on driving questions or otherwise structure for inquiry. It should cross multiple disciplines. Many subjects should be able to be involved in the same topic. Digital age skills and literacies. I want to be able to use new applications, the web, and everything that will help students be successful in the real world. Develop dispositions or attitudes towards learning. The students, learn by actually doing the project themselves. And there is an authentic audience. Okay. Next, Chapter 5 discussed assessment. Okay, it's important to have a system that asks what students need or what they want, and have the students achieve these learning goals. The best way to start a project is to look at the summative or the final assessment, because this will measure what the students have learned or will learn. Okay, so start with the end in mind. This will then shape your goals all the way through. And in the end, it demonstrates what the students have learned. And the assessment along the way is called a formative assessment. Okay, it gives a teacher an insight into how the process is going. It allows the teacher to address misunderstandings, adjust the project as they go, and guide effort in the new direction. How can this be done? Well, through rubrics. Some schools have school-wide rubrics in which the language is consistent from class to class, which helps students. And it focuses on project-based learning and core values of education. Or sometimes teachers will have to create them from scratch, in which they usually include 3 categories, 3 to 5 criteria with 3 to 5 levels of performance, and some areas are more heavily weighted than others. Usually the content knowledge is weighted more than other skills that are being assessed. Okay, the rubrics are going to reflect growth in the target skills and their dispositions. It's a scoring tool that helps communicate expectations. Teachers understanding what the student knows, and then the student understands what the teacher wants to see at the end. So, how will I use these in my classroom? Generally, just about everything in a language art class needs a rubric. Students always need a standard and an expectation. Also, dispositions, theory of mind, habits of mind are very essential. One's attitude towards learning is critical in order to achieve their goal. And here are my sources. And this is all going to add up to something that will help my students in my classroom. Okay, so this concludes my presentation on project-based learning. Thank you very much.